Mikko Kauppi will give the eulogy this morning.
Hi, I'm Veikko's oldest son. I'd like to share with you about my dad's life. He was born on September 24th, 1930, at the beginning of the Depression. The youngest of 7 children, he lived in a region of Finland known as Karjala. During the wartime, his family was evacuated and his homeland was taken by Russia. It's hard to imagine how difficult it must have been to experience this, along with his mother's death when he was 8 years old. As a teenager, he began working as a conductor on a bus. He served in the Finnish army, training as a medic in his early 20s. At the age of 25, he traveled to Kuusamo to visit his brother Pentti. Pentti's wife Eli had a sister named Hilkka. The story is told that once my dad laid eyes on Hilkka, he could not leave. They were married on Easter Monday, April 22nd, 1957. They started their life together in a simple walk-up apartment in Kuusamo. Dad worked in Kuusamo for the local road maintenance department as a mechanic. In 1960, I was born, the first of 5 children. A year and a half later, now living in a rental house, Dad and Mom had their first daughter, Maria Lisa. Sadness and sorrow beset them just 15 months later when Maria passed away suddenly. My sister Ulpo brought joy to our family when she was born on the historically significant date of November 22nd, 1963. In early 1965, the second son, Veikko, or Pete as he is now known, was born. My growing family required more living space, and by then, Dad and Mom had their own house outside of the town of Kuusamo. About this time, we started to get letters and have visits from relatives living in a far-off land that they were told was brimming with opportunity for a better life. After a couple of years, the lure was irresistible, so the house was sold and as many belongings as could fit into a packing crate were shipped off, and we boarded a plane for a new life in Canada. Veikko arrived in Toronto on January 3rd, 1967, with Hilkka and young family in tow. He did not speak a word of English, had no promise of a job, and no idea where we would live. As a matter of fact, when we were met at the airport by our Uncle Jan, none of us could communicate with him because he spoke only English and Swedish. It was not until we were at his apartment that my mom's sister Anneli could begin to familiarize us with the strange new man. Despite challenges, with a lot of help from Anneli and Jan and others in the Finnish community, it was not long until Dad had a job as a fabricator in a factory and we had an apartment in Toronto. About 2.5 years later, we were living in a larger apartment, and it's a good thing we were because the family grew again with the birth of Timo in 1969. During the first few years in Toronto, Dad worked at several hard fabricating jobs, including welding inside cement mixer drums. Looking for a better way to earn a living, he decided to try aluminum siding installation. He partnered with Uncle Jan, who was also looking for a career change. They enjoyed success in a job that at the time paid the same amount as a university professor would make. With the family complete, Dad was able to buy a townhouse in the early 70s and a split-level house a couple of years later. I just looked at the picture of that house on Google Street View a few months ago, and it still looks great, with the landscaping that we helped Dad plant growing strong in front of the house. About the time we were planting that landscaping, Dad and Mom began to get letters and phone calls from a far-off province that they were told was beautiful and full of exciting opportunities. Once again, the lure was strong, and with my mom sensing that God was directing the move, the house was sold, our belongings were packed into our old van, our new van, our tent trailer, and a U-Haul. We set off across Canada in October 1973. Our first stop was in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, where my mom's sister Doini and her family lived. We had visited them during several summer holidays to stay at the RV campground that they owned. Rolling west from Ontario, we continued on until once again we were on Anneli and Jan's doorstep. This time, the only thing we could not pronounce was the name of the town. The port part was okay, but we weren't quite sure how to say Coquitlam. We soon had a new house in a part of Langley called Brookswood. Dad continued to work at siding installation, putting in long days that would see him leave at 6 in the morning and not return until 7 or 8 on some nights. Despite this, he still found time for projects such as building the finished sauna in the basement. On top of that, he would do all the driving to go shopping or visiting or to attend church services. Up until this time, he had been primarily going to church to allow my mom to attend with us in tow. God had been calling him and using friends and workmates to reach out to him. However, it was not until he suffered a serious shoulder injury that he began to respond to God's call, and Dad accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior in 1979. With newly found peace in his life, he started going to church for himself as well. Dad continued to work in siding installation until 1985, when his friend Lasse Heiskanen, who was working as a caretaker at the Surrey School District, convinced Dad to apply for a job there. For the next 10 years, Dad worked as a caretaker in Surrey schools, retiring at the age of 65 from Serpentine Heights Elementary. Dad was good with his hands and was always repairing things and working on projects for himself and for others. He loved to hunt and fish. Some of my favorite times with him were spent fishing for salmon off Point Roberts. He loved to spend time with family, which had been growing as he began to approach his retirement years. Dad, or Isi as we called him in Finnish, became Papa. Pete married Ann Ames in 1987, and they have 2 children, Aaron, who is now 21, and Alyssa, who is 18. Kimmo married Heather Thompson in 1992, and they have 3 daughters, Alana, age 14, Brittany, age 10, and Ava, who is 7. Opal married Mendel Mayer in 2000. Their children are Larissa, age 8, Nicholas, who is 7, and Josiah, who is 5. I married Diane Bailey in 2001. Our children are Lisa, who is 6 years old, and 4-year-old Jeff. Dad was a loving and devoted husband for 53 years. He worked hard to provide for his family. There's a quote from Woody Allen that goes, 80% of success is showing up. Dad showed up courageous in the face of challenges along the way, but it was his faith in God, his loyalty, and his honesty that will mark his legacy. My brothers and I have followed in his footsteps in many ways. Kimmo is an automotive master technician for Toyota. I worked in siding installation with my dad and later had my own siding business. Currently, Pete and I both work for the Surrey School District. Pete is a groundskeeper and I work as a bus driver. As we face the challenge of Papa's battle with cancer, the love for each other and for God that we all share as a family is very much in evidence. As I look out on this gathering, I see so many friends that have been loyal to Dad for decades. We appreciate the support that you've provided throughout the years and through these difficult times. After Papa had been in hospital for 7 weeks, we received a call last Sunday that his condition had become very serious and he only had days to live. That Sunday was a gift for the family as we all had a chance to be with him. He was alert and happy to see everyone, including all his grandchildren. I spent the following night at his bedside. He had a peaceful sleep, but his situation quickly deteriorated on Monday morning. Calling out to Jesus, he passed away peacefully at 7:45 in the morning at the age of 79, as I held him, telling him how proud we are of him and how much we all love him.